I want to talk about the aftermath, and I also want to provide a little insight to Hamas, because people in the mainstream media, and it's still all over the interwebs and tweeters and everywhere else, are saying Hamas did this, Hamas. They're a terrorist group. They lost the moral high ground doing what they did. But, if you're inside Gaza, any type of resistance, especially from an area that's been carpet bombed by Israeli forces, ethnically cleansed, their water's controlled, their electricity is controlled, people are going to kind of, form a bond with those people who are fighting as the resistance. So let's take a look at this really quickly, because this is towards the end, after when Gazans just poured into the streets because they were so happy to just be alive, to celebrate life. Take a look.
After 51 days of relentless war, a ceasefire was declared, and the people of Gaza poured out into the streets to celebrate their survival.
يأسرك القلق احذر يخطفك النفق احذر يأسرك القلق احذر يخطفك النفق ستصحبون إذا دنيتم ستصحبون إذا بقيتم ستسحقون إذا دنيتم ستصحبون إذا بقيتم.
In the ruins of Shujaiya, the Al-Qassam brigades emerged in public for the first time since the war began. Having spent 51 days literally underground, these guerrilla fighters were free to trumpet their gallantry before an admiring population.
لقد ظل شعبنا يعيش معنى اليتم مضطهدا مقهورا واليوم ومن غزة.
Now, this is the Al-Qassam brigades. Who are they exactly, Dan, and why are the people supporting them?
The Al-Qassam brigades are the armed wing of Hamas. So that is the main resistance force.
When you say armed wing, is there another wing too as well? Please explain that as well.
Yeah, there's the political wing of Hamas. That, guys that people that don't deal with weapons, but are the political party.
Like Sinn
so they have
Féin
the
was?
political party. Sorry?
Like Sinn Féin?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, so you have the political wing and the armed wing. And frankly, the armed wing is more dominant. The political wing does the political side, but fundamentally, it's about guns. It's about armed resistance. Now, who joins the Al-Qassam brigades? Well, like I said, the Wissam Shamalis, the Muntasir Bakrs, the young people who have no future under occupation, under siege, who want to defend their land, avenge their loved ones, avenge their friends, and who want to live in a free Palestine. So the resistance, and Al-Qassam is not the only one. There are various armed resistance groups, but they're the biggest one. So there's Islamic Jihad, which same idea. There's the PFLP, which is a Marxist-Leninist group. There's the DFLP, a Maoist group. So there are these different groups, but they all work together, and Al-Qassam is the biggest one. And over the years, it's become very strong and capable. It manufactures its own weapons. Certainly, they have technology and know-how from the Iranians. But basically, they draw on, the reason that Hamas and Al-Qassam and any of these groups, these various political ideologies that all are part of Palestinian resistance exists, is because they're forced to resist, because of occupation, because of siege. So when you're living under those conditions, well, naturally, you can either just sit home and quietly die, which most people won't want to do, or you can take up arms and resist, or you can resist in other ways through culture, through writing, through journalism. There's all kinds of ways by, people who are refusing to leave their home in the north of Gaza right now, who are refusing those Israeli orders. For a lot of them, it's a form of resistance, saying, I'm not going to comply with the occupier, with my murderer. I'm not going to do what you tell me. If you're going to kill me, then you got to kill me. You know, so
Yeah.
I mean, the distinction between the people and the resistance in a context of international law we have to talk about it there, and that's important. But in terms of the reality that Palestinians are facing, basically the resistance is the people, and the people are the resistance. Al-Qassam could not be what it is if it didn't have the support of the people. You wouldn't have, young men. You wouldn't have teenage boys who look up to those guys like they're heroes. You saw that them parading through the streets, and people just want to touch them for a second. That's what Al-Qassam is in Gaza and throughout Palestine. Abu Ubaidah, who you just saw spoken, is a heartthrob for Palestinian women. So, I mean, that's what resistance is. And it's just not a reality that we Americans really know anything about. It's just a completely different reality.
Yeah, I've been to a lot of Latin American countries, and a lot of people in the States always harp on, well, they're socialist and communist. It's like, well, it's more of a collective government, right? People coming together to fight off the boot of the American empire that's on their neck. And that's what happens with these resistance groups over here. We're forcing them into this. This next clip I have over here was my favorite scene in the movie, because a man in Palestine explains why some of their children eventually enter into martyrism, right? Check this out.
Described the savagery they had endured and envisioned a bitter future in the ruins of their homes.
His son was killed while treating people who emergency services couldn't reach. Which news agency is this? Oh, it's American? American, excellent. What happened to your son? First, in the name of merciful God. It's an American news agency. We want to thank them. We thank the Americans, who are very good people. They treat us kindly and respectfully. They give us a loaf of bread and a sandwich. And they give Israeli missiles and tanks and warplanes to the Israelis. This boy here will make an atomic bomb in a house in 10 to 15 years and erase Israel completely. Why? Because he saw his father and his uncle martyred before him. His family, his house was looted, and from now on, he will live in a tent. The little kid who won't have any food or water. So how can we lift this hatred from the hearts of these children? How can we lift it? In what way? Tell us. How do we teach these children to feel joy again? Should we kill them with all the missiles, or should we fool them with a piece of bread? No, he can't be fooled. Who wants American bread, young children? Huh? Obama is sending you some small balloons. Do you want them? No, that won't work. That won't work. Won't do it. So what do you think? This is my message to the American people in the whole world. May God punish everyone that has wronged us Palestinian people. Palestinians are not terrorists. They are civilized. That was my favorite scene, because it explains so much what you were talking about. When you went and talked to the brother of the young gentleman we showed that was killed by Israeli snipers and what he wants to do. This is a father and uncle showing, what do you want us to do? You're killing their parents. They're going to turn to this type of ideology. What else could they do?
Well, is it obvious if Netanyahu and the extreme cuckoo wing were actively propping Hamas up, that much like the helpful protest bricks during the BLM riots that were mysteriously left? I don't know if we ever got to the bottom of who left the helpful protest bricks, but clearly they want them to do that, because then you can go in and what do they say? Flatten it.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, notice every time somebody's not violent. I mean, I don't even know what the hell you're supposed to do there. Like, if you're going to die anyway, I don't know what people expect. Yeah. But for example, in Canada, the truckers they called Nazis who were not violent at all. That is so threatening to a power structure. They need to make sure there's gonna be some terrorists.
Yeah.
They gotta make sure of it. And then regular people maybe vaguely get it. I don't know. But people in power get it, and that's always their little playing chess with people's lives move.
Well, I think what you just said before that, the people in power understand it, but I don't think a lot of Americans understand.
Not at all.
At all how this happens. Go ahead, Dan.
And only Jews have told me about it.
Yeah.
Arabs haven't told me about that. the details of this. I've only learned about it from Jews who were apparently bad Jews.
I don't think it's that Netanyahu especially wants Hamas to rule Gaza. I mean, what they actually want is for the Palestinian Authority that's in the West Bank to rule Gaza, because it's not Palestinian and it has no authority. It is a complete creation of the United States and Israel. That's the thing. That's the creation of the West. And the Palestinian Authority is a collaborator regime. It polices the Palestinian population centers in the West Bank, and it just does the bidding. It's trained by the U.S. I mean, it just does the bidding completely of the United States, and it's just a neoliberal security state creation. It's Israel's best asset. That's what they want to rule Gaza. They don't actually want Hamas to rule Gaza, but they can't get Hamas to rule Gaza. The reason that Netanyahu, was in 2019 talking about we got to get money to them is a couple reasons. One, divide and conquer. Israel, like any colonial power, they have to make sure that the parties are divided. So there's been bitter fighting between Fatah, which is the kind of older guard political party that is more secular but became very corrupt, and then between Hamas, which in the late 80s began organically in Gaza and then eventually, of course, rose to power. So those groups fight bitterly. There's fights between them, armed clashes between them in Gaza. So the idea, I've seen people saying that like Israel created Hamas. It's not that. It's just that once they saw Hamas kind of coming on the scene, it was much smaller, and they saw if we kind of tip the scales a little bit to them, then it makes fighting, So, but then of course, how did that turn out?
If they were a musical group, and a manager found them singing in some club and made them huge, that manager would say, "I created them."
Yeah.
Hey, we're doing stand-up comedy in Covina, California, Burbank, California, the day after Thanksgiving, Oxnard, California, Venice, California, Palmdale, California, lots of places in the Southland. Omaha, Nebraska. We're going to be in Omaha. We're going to be in Des Moines, Milwaukee, Lansing, Bend, Oregon, Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington. Plus, we're going to be in Boston. We're going to be in Boston, too. Go check us out in Boston. The Wilbur Theater in Boston. See you there.